You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Censorship, I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, happy Independence Day. 3 years on from our glorious exit from the EU, this should be another momentous national celebration. But the deranged campaign to destroy our Brexit dream is still holding the country back.
It'd not be more honest to acknowledge that Brexit is failing on its own terms for business.
Essentially, the gig is up. 3 years in, and not really anybody is pretending that things are going to get better.
But our politicians must ignore the media haters and wreckers and prove that they will truly embrace Brexit to create a better United Kingdom. That's today's special Brexit Day Digest next. Then my superstar panel weigh-in. Joining me tonight, Amanda Patel, Calvin Robinson and Rebecca Reid. Then we'll get the view of two political heroes who made the Vote Leave dream come true. At 9:35, Nigel Farage unveils his battle plan to save Brexit from an establishment plot to rejoin the EU by stealth. And former Conservative Minister and prominent Brexiteer Sir John Redwood reveals what the government needs to do to neutralise the threat of a Ramona coup. His unmissable analysis from inside Westminster coming up at 10:20. Also on the show tonight, as it's revealed, she wants a major role in negotiating the coronation peace deal with Archbishop Justin Woke-Welby. Can the monarchy's arch-enemy, Meghan Markle, be trusted to do the right thing by Britain? Niall Gardner, Joanna Jarju and Richard Fitzwilliam are going to duke it out on The Clash on that at 9:20. As a shocking new ad campaign shows education unions exploiting young minds for propaganda, should parents invoice the NEU for the cost of extra childcare and lost wages caused by the strikes? Well, Calvin McKenzie says it's high time the lefties paid for the pain they're inflicting on hard-working Brits, and he's going to be live on that at 10:40. Donald Trump's pulling no punches on a blistering return to the campaign trail.
When I hear he might run, I consider that very disloyal, but it's not about loyalty. But to me it is. It's always about loyalty.
So is it too early to write off the former president making a Lazarus-style comeback? Star US journalist Meghan Markle gives us the lowdown stateside at 9:50. And with J.K. Rowling calling out Turf Sturgeon, the First Minister's close ally, telling gender bill rebels to leave the party, has Scheming Sturgeon destroyed her political career by pandering to these woke extremists? We're going to debate the brewing SNP civil war at 10:30. Plus, Matt Hancock's a money-grabbing narcissist. Get him out of here.
Are you telling the truth when you say that it wasn't your primary motivation?
Absolutely. Of course.
So did you negotiate over the fee?
Of course there was a discussion and negotiation over the fee.
More of the disgraced MP's car crash interview coming up in the media buzz. We'll have tomorrow's newspaper front pages for you, hot off the press, and a new Greatest Britain and Union Jackass too. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. Independence Day, Brexit Day, whatever you want to call it. I actually think today should be a national bank holiday, although with the economy and the state it's in, we probably don't need any more of those. But I'm going to have a special Brexit Day digest in just a moment. First, though, the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you. Good evening. The top story on GB News tonight. Tens of thousands of teachers in England and Wales have joined the UK's largest education union to take part in national strikes tomorrow. The National Education Union says 40,000 school staff signed up in a fortnight. Tomorrow's the first of 7 days of strikes by the union across February and March in a dispute over pay. The Education Minister, Nick Gibb, described the strikes as disruptive.
It is disappointing that the NEU has decided to go ahead with these strikes when we are still discussing issues of pay and workload and other issues very constructively. Even yesterday we were having those discussions. And strikes are disruptive to children's education, particularly after the 2 years of disruption during the COVID pandemic. And it's disrupting to parents and families as well.
A new report by the International Monetary Fund is predicting a negative outlook for the UK economy. It's forecasting that the UK's gross domestic product, or GDP, will shrink by 0.6% over the coming year, even though in October, the same IMF expected growth of 0.3%. However, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, says Britain outperformed many other financial forecasts last year, despite higher interest rates and tighter government budgets. The Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, though, is blaming the IMF's stance on 13 years of Conservative economic policy.
The UK economy has got huge potential, and yet the government is failing to seize that initiative. And we see today, with these forecasts from the IMF, with the UK now at the bottom of the league table for growth, both this year and next, the government needs to be doing so much more to fulfil the potential of the UK economy.
In news away from home, the actor Alec Baldwin has been officially charged today with involuntary manslaughter over the fatal shooting on the set of the film Rust. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed during rehearsals in the US state of New Mexico in 2021 when a prop gun that Baldwin was using fired a live round. Baldwin says he never pulled the trigger and that it was just a tragic accident. He could face, though, up to 5 years in jail if he's convicted. Now, in news here at home, Lancashire Police say they found and are speaking to a key witness they were appealing to come forward earlier in their search for the missing mother of two, Nicola Bulley. The 45-year-old was last seen walking her dog by the River Wyre on Friday. Her mobile phone was later found on a bench, still on a conference call to work, and her dog was discovered running loose nearby. And lastly, the Princess of Wales says it's essential to know what's needed to help the future generation become happy, healthy adults. Launching her new early years campaign called Shaping Us, the Princess says she hopes to help people understand how early childhood affects later life and adulthood. Kensington Palace says the importance of early years development will be a key focus for Kate for the rest of her life. That's it. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB Plus radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel. Let's get back to Dan Wootton tonight.
Brand new from the No Sugar Sherlock file, a British bashing corporation, so-called journalists, lack, quote, understanding of basic economics and are guilty of uninformed groupthink when it comes to financial reporting. That very honest revelation came from a report commissioned by, wait for it, the BBC board itself. And while it focused specifically on the corporation's coverage of taxation, public spending, government borrowing and debt, all of that is relevant to how the Beeb has completely missed the point when it comes to our decision to leave the European Union, which I'm celebrating the 3rd anniversary of tonight. Happy Brexit Day, happy Independence Day. From the start, the BBC, along with, let's be honest, almost all of the MSM broadcast media, has hated Brexit. According to them, supporters of Brexit are racist, backward and stupid, rather than patriotic, sensible and passionate about the need for Britain to have sovereignty over our own affairs. And by being so stuck in their London metropolitan champagne socialist bubble, they failed to see the seismic decision coming that would become our biggest ever and, in my opinion, greatest democratic mandate. So, of course, after very briefly licking their wounds, they began their campaign to diminish Brexit voters and paint the decision as a failure.
I suppose, looking at the crowd, it is a very white crowd, mostly.
I've never seen so many white people in one place. It's an extraordinary story.
Joe Biden is in the room. Boris Johnson's presence is not required. And given that Britain is no longer part of Europe, how much influence does the UK Prime Minister have?
You only have to look at the pound. You only have to look at people going on holiday. You only have to look at doctors who've told Newsnight they're worried about the availability of cancer drugs. This is far from not ideal. This is a horrendous outcome.
This is unprecedented. The scale of this catastrophe is absolutely unbelievable.
The NHS was one of the headlines, facing a staffing crisis after Brexit because it sparked a jaw-dropping 96% fall in EU nurses applying for jobs. I mean, that would make people think, I want to rethink that decision to leave the single market.
Why bother with a milkshake when you could get some battery acid?
Ha ha ha. But as ever, the BBC and the MSM missed a fundamental point. Brexit voters backed leaving the EU because of the importance for us to make our own decisions. Of course, politicians could cock them up, and they have, time and again, this past 3 years, failing to take advantage of many of the amazing opportunities provided by Brexit. But that doesn't mean the decision to leave itself was wrong. Not that you'd believe that by watching the current hysterical coverage on the MSM around Brexit.
Do you think Brexit's going well?
Oh, I think Brexit's going well for a whole range of reasons.
Give me some.
OK, I'll give you one to start with. £191 billion that we've saved by not being part of the EU's COVID bailout.
Give me another.
I'll give you another one, that insurance is cheaper because we're no longer subject to the...
Cheaper.
We're no longer subject to the VNUC regulation. And the benefits keep on running. It does, yeah.
This line here is where it could be if it had continued growing at the same rate as before the referendum. That's according to academics at King's College London. But in reality, it stalled. The UK is the only major rich economy that's smaller, poorer than before the pandemic.
Would it not be more honest to acknowledge that Brexit is failing on its own terms for business?
What we now can do is set the future of our own country in the way we wish to, with complete freedom, and that is a huge opportunity.
And do you think we're doing that
for 50 years?
So your message to people who are now regretting it or thinking it's wrong or starting to wonder why on earth we did it is what? It's not a ringing endorsement, is it?
It is... Essentially, the gig is up. 3 years in, and not really anybody is pretending that things are going to get better.
Guy Verhofstadt, the EU's hater and wrecker Brexit coordinator, even used an interview this morning to blame the Ukraine war on the UK's decision to leave the EU.
I think maybe without Brexit, maybe there was no invasion. I don't know.
I know, you're talking rubbish. This deranged campaign against Brexit will continue until those sorts of knuckleheads eventually drag us back into the EU. What's missing in the coverage is the understanding that the blob and the political establishment want to do all they can to undermine our leave decision and set up imminent closer ties with the EU once they predict Ramona Keir Starmer is installed as PM. We have now been free from the single market for over 2 years. We have regained legislative autonomy, although the shameful Northern Ireland mess remains unresolved. As the European Research Group pointed out today, we have the ability for free ports, animal welfare improvements, cheaper motor insurance, immigration controls, no annual EU budget payments, and the option for tax reform. But now our politicians must ignore the media haters and wreckers and prove that they will truly embrace Brexit to create a better United Kingdom. Sadly, I have little faith they have the gumption to do that. To respond now, my superstar panel, top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. And Amanda Patel, there has been so much dishonest reporting around Brexit, and I think it has hit fever pitch today.
It was astonishing. Leaving home to come in tonight, I had to put Bob Marley on because I was getting so distressed. I was listening to LBC and they were contemplating the theory that if it weren't for that Brexit caused Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
That was your first mistake, listening to LBC.
You got to listen to something. I've got some friends on them, not James O'Brien, I've got to say.
On radio.
So I know, but look, we are the diverse channel. You know, I need to hear these voices. That's when I thought it was the pinnacle.
You need to hear what we're up against.
But Ukrainians are dying on a daily basis because we voted for Brexit. And it's just layer upon layer of total nonsense. But, you know, I just feel they've all leapt on the on this new, economic report that, again, that's because, it's a forecast. It's not a prophecy. Well, I guess it is kind of a prophecy. It's a forecast. But, we're going to sink. All the other countries in the entire world, except for New Zealand, are going to do better than us. And everything that they can possibly link to Brexit, they're linking. But the real villains in this piece, apart from the mass media, is, I'm afraid, the Tory party, because you've got a bunch of Remainers in charge, Jeremy Hunt, Remainer, Rishi, reluctant, opportunistic leaver, and they have had 6 years to do something about this. We left 6 years ago. 3 years ago, we technically left, and they have done absolutely nothing, and they dared come out and say to us, actually, now what we're going to do in the next year before the election is we're going to stop all the links with European trade. We're going to take all that red tape out. I thought that's what they were doing all along, Dan. I thought that that's what their job was. And it's the Tory party that have betrayed the Brexiteers.
Calvin Robinson, you were a big Brexit supporter. You went hardcore for us to leave. Do you agree with Amanda that the Tory party hasn't done enough to honour Brexit?
First of all, happy Brexit Day, Dan.
Oh. Yeah, to all of us. Yay, happy Brexit Day.
Happy Brexit Day. Look, I'm not one of these people, by the way, who says we should get new public holidays for everything, but I think we should have an independent state holiday.
That's funny, because I think we should have more public holidays. I don't necessarily think we need one for this.
That party was euphoric. It was amazing to get everyone back together and to celebrate our leaving. It was a good success.
I know, it was a wonderful night.
And to see how
we can all remember.
Did you guys all go to the same party?
We're all there.
No, we just remember. It's like when the first man landed on the moon. Too young for you, Rebecca.
I didn't vote.
We all remember where we were.
They still don't get it, do they? I heard Deborah Mead on Newsnight last night, and some of the clips you just played, they still don't understand what it was all about. No. It wasn't an economic argument, and that's why they lost the first time around.
What was it all about, then?
For me, it was
control.
About our national sovereignty. It was about saying we are an independent country. We're not part of a federal state of the United States of Europe. We are independent, we are British, and that is something to be proud of. That's what it was about for me.
You still don't get it, do you, Rebecca? Because let's be honest, I know you say you didn't vote, but you are part of that London metropolitan scene that I talk about. You just think Brexit's a big
100%.
pain in the arse.
Liberal elite till I die. Brexit is a pain in the arse. I would love to stop talking about it. And I thought when we lost the vote, I didn't vote, but I thought when it didn't go
You did not vote?
No, I was like 24. I was drunk.
24 is the voting age?
I don't think it should be. I don't think anybody should be allowed to vote.
If you don't vote in it,
No,
That is an outrageous thing to say.
I really.
But she's been honest, Amanda.
Yeah.
Look, she's been
Like
honest.
a lot of people.
And a lot of people did
There are a
vote
lot
for
of
the
things I could
first
tell you
time
on this show
in the
that
EU
would be
referendum.
honest, but they would be rather revealing, and it's probably best not to say them. That you should not have said.
But on the economics, can I just say the reason we're in a downfall right now is because of the IMF getting rid of, and all the elite getting rid of Rishi Sunak and getting rid of Liz Truss and getting Sunak in.
Do a little bit of that as well. I think there's been quite a lot of, and that war in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis.
If we'd have stuck with Trussonomics,
quite a
we'd be
lot
in a
of.
much better place now.
I mean, it's easy.
Hiking up taxes. And,
That's like-
look at the GDP.
That's like me saying if Jeremy Corbyn had won the election, we'd be in a better place. Like, we don't know. You can
No
say
one says
anything.
that, Rebecca.
No, I
No
don't.
one says that.
I don't feel that way. But you can say if X, Y, Z had happened. My issue is whenever there is a problem, it feels like what we do is just blame the BBC because it's easy and it's lazy.
They are often involved.
The BBC is not involved. It is not the BBC doesn't make policy. It's not the BBC's fault that this hasn't been
They have a lot of influence. They don't write the policy, but they have a lot of influence.
And they're economically...
Not because I was you were done. I just was on camera. I was doing that because apparently we can't.
It was a very
hear
Dominic
you.
Raab of
Which
you.
actually, if you're
That's not my fault.
That's a good thing tonight. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Amanda Patel, most superstar panel are here all night. Now, coming up, as noted Brexiteer and columnist Daniel Hannan says there is a Remainer coup to put us back into the EU by stealth. Does our Brexit hero, the man who made it all happen, Nigel Farage, agree that our dream is at risk? And how would he save Brexit? Well, Farage is going to be with me live this Independence Day at 9:35. But up next, in the clash, amid speculation that Meghan Markle wants a major role in negotiating the coronation peace deal with Justin Welby, can the Duchess of Sussex be trusted to do the right thing by Britain? Joanna Jarjou, Niall Gardner and Richard Fitzwilliam join me straight after the break, and I want your views on this too. Email me, Dan at gbnews.uk, tweet me at gbnews, our poll running there too. The clash straight after these messages.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes back on the TV
Surprised
with me this morning.
even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions are, those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you.
Britain's watching. Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle.
Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And despite Meghan Markle taking a rare vow of silence since the publication of Spare, royal insiders now fear there could be an ulterior motive. We know that the uber-woke Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has been drafted in to mediate discussions between the firm and the Sussexes over their role in the coronation. And as I revealed in my Mail Online column yesterday, insiders worry that by making no comment on Spare's contents, Meghan could be setting herself up as a power broker in likely forthcoming negotiations between Harry and King Charles. So, amid speculation that she wants a major role in negotiating the coronation agreement, can the Duchess of Sussex be trusted to do the right thing by Britain? Let me know your thoughts. Email me, dan@gbnews.uk. Vote in our poll at GB News. Those results shortly. But to debate this now, I'm joined by the social commentator Joanna Jarju, former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Niall Gardner, can we trust that Meghan is going to do the right thing by the country and the right thing by the monarchy rather than just the right thing by herself?
Great to see you, Dan. I have to say that we simply cannot trust Meghan Markle at all. I think she has really led a vicious campaign to undermine the royal family here. She is thoroughly untrustworthy, I think hugely vindictive. And we simply cannot in any way, I think, trust anything she does in terms of her dealings with the royal family. She is the last person on earth, frankly, who should be handling some kind of negotiation with the British monarchy. I think that this is an extremely dangerous idea.
Joanna Jarju, you're a big supporter of Meghan. How do you respond? Can we trust her?
I mean, the whole question to me makes absolutely no sense because, first of all, should Meghan be there in this family mediation, which is what this is? It's not just
I don't think she should.
Where you've got two different, sides that are talking, something that's hugely important. This is about a family mediation and something that Meghan has been hugely involved in. And secondly, about the whole thing about can she be trusted to do the right thing by Britain? What decision is even going to be made in these mediations that's going to remotely affect anything to do with Britain? This is about a family that's been hurt. Things have happened on both sides.
Joanna, I would say a huge amount because the eyes of the world are going to be on Britain on the day of the coronation. And as it stands, Prince William, I think quite rightly, is highly sceptical and highly suspicious and actually deeply worried that Harry and Meghan might use some sort of stunt to try and overshadow the coronation. Now, I'm saying I don't trust her to do the right thing by Britain, but I'm happy to hear the other side. Why should we trust Meghan, Joanna?
Well, I don't think that there's anything that Meghan could possibly do based on, their behaviour in the past when there's been very public events that the royal family have been involved in.
Leaked private conversations?
Harry has attended his grandfather's funeral, he's attended his grandmother's funeral, and when Meghan actually came to the Queen's funeral, she didn't say a word, yet the British press went after her as if she made the whole thing about herself. She came, she was quiet, they both were quiet and respectful, and I think this is another family occasion where they're just going to turn up, if they decide to, and just cooperate.
OK. Well, I think the issue is about what they did after, about the fact that, for example, example, they recounted a deeply personal conversation had between father and son, Harry and Charles, just minutes after a grief-stricken Charles had laid his father, Prince Philip, to rest. That entire conversation was recounted in spares. So that's the sort of damage. But, Richard, you've heard Joanna there say, actually, Meghan's done nothing wrong here. We can trust her. As a royal commentator, do you think she has our best interests at heart?
I think that she has her own interests at heart, and I certainly have an idea where those interests might lie. What we've got is an absolutely extraordinary situation. We've got the Archbishop of Canterbury, apparently, if the reports are true, mediating between King Charles and the Sussexes, with William reportedly extremely sceptical about it. It ought to be borne in mind that since early December, there have been a series of vicious attacks by the Sussexes on the royal family homes, with 5 trailers, and one of them, of course, deliberately intended to upset the Prince and Princess of Wales's trip to Boston. Then subsequently we had 6 hours of Netflix of that documentary and attacks on the Commonwealth. There was a brief truce, very nice of them, for Christmas, and subsequently we had Spare and all those interviews. So far as Meghan's concerned, what I do think that part of the plan might very well be is to be involved in some sort of negotiation with the royal family whereby they won't get an apology as such as the way they've said that they want one, but what they will, I think, or might get is some indication, a nod to what they think they've suffered. She could use that in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And Niall, I'm sorry, they don't deserve that. I'm fully with William here. Why is Charles bending down to satisfy these two, Niall? At the end of the day, if they don't want to come to the coronation, don't come. But let me tell you, they will be here because all of their multi-million-dollar deals, Niall, are completely dependent on having a close proximity to the British royal family.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Dan. And I think that Prince William's instincts are fundamentally right on this, that he really fears that Harry and Meghan will basically be disruptive if they come over to the United Kingdom. They have a long track record, of course, of briefing against the royal family. They will use private conversations in order to sell books, basically. So they are in it for their own agenda. In fact, they are basically, I would describe as high-level extortionists in many respects, making extraordinary demands of the royal family. They're in no position whatsoever to be making any demands at all. They should be really cast into the wilderness, frankly. They should have no future role within the British monarchy at all.
Joanna, how do you respond to that? Niall Gardner, this is a man very politically connected, says Harry and Meghan are now high-level extortionists.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I think that
Why?
Harry had every right to give his account of his story, and he's done that now. And I think that it's completely ridiculous and ludicrous that anybody would think that anytime he has, any interaction with his family, that he's going to write it in a book. And actually, realistically, when we think about the accusations that Harry has made in the book, just because he's been, put his head above the parapet and said, this is what I think, this is my story, doesn't mean that the royal family haven't been briefing and haven't been leaking stuff, but behind closed doors. Just because somebody decides to...
Richard shaking his head at that. Richard, why are you shaking your head at that?
I'm shaking my head because the lies in Spare, for example, the idea that the press, and we're talking about the paparazzi, we're talking about the royal rotans, photographers, we're talking about royal correspondents and commentators and critics on social media, that they're an extension of the Buckingham Palace public relations is absolute rubbish. What we've seen is very careful manipulation by the Sussexes, and incidentally, regarding the royal racists, now we're told nearly 2 years later, it's unconscious bias.
Doesn't exist. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here, Richard, until Meghan's autobiography, I'd say. They're saving it for that. Thank you so much to the social commentator Joanna Jaju, former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. But who do you agree with? Amid speculation she wants this major role, can the Duchess of Sussex be trusted to do the right thing by Britain in the negotiations over the coronation of the King? From Julia, they shouldn't be allowed anywhere near the coronation coronation. The day is about the King and Queen, not the pair who sold out the royal family for money. Richard on Twitter writes, why should she? She is full of her own importance. The majority don't want her at the coronation. But from Fiona, yes, it is a family event. So that's a different take. Your verdict is now in. Just 6% of you agree that Meghan can be trusted. 94% of you say keep out of those negotiations with woke Justin Welby. Have to say, I've got to be honest with you, one of my issues is I don't trust Justin Welby in this case to do the right thing by Britain either. Remember, he's Team Harry and Meghan. But coming up, as Donald Trump returns to the campaign trail in blistering fashion, is it too early to write off the former president making an epic political comeback? Star US journalist Megyn Kelly live with me stateside at 9:50. But first, does Nigel Farage agree that the country's freedom from the EU is at risk? And what needs to be done to save Brexit from a stealth Ramona coup? Britain's Brexit hero outlines his battle plan live this Independence Day. That's after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online. Across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's What the Farage time now, and today marks 3 years since Britain's momentous exit from the EU, a moment best summed up by the Brexit hero himself.
Dare to dream that the dawn is breaking on an independent, united kingdom. It's a victory for ordinary people, decent people. It's a victory against the big merchant banks, against the big businesses, and against big politics. And I'm proud of everybody that had the courage, in the face of all the threats, everything they were told, they had the guts to stand up and do the right thing. I know you want to ban our national flags, but we're going to wave you goodbye, and we'll look forward in the future to working with you as soon as it's all over. Finished.
But we're yet to take advantage of the countless Brexit benefits, and as prominent Brexiteer Daniel Hannan writes in the Daily Telegraph, the evidence is undeniable. There really is a Remainer plan to rejoin the EU by stealth. So, Nigel, happy Independence Day, but can you really be celebrating 3 years on, given that climate that Daniel talks about?
Well, you can celebrate the fact that we smashed the establishment. I mean, what happened in Parliament Square, as we speak, 100,000 people were in Parliament Square on a cold, late January night, many of them without trains home, but they were there to celebrate not just leaving the EU, not just getting our independence, but beating a political establishment that have done their best for 3 years to ignore the referendum result. So let's not forget the significance of it. But I feel like I've moved house. You know, that was it. We were moving into a big new home with lots of rooms, and 3 years on, many of the packing boxes are still there, untouched. There's been almost no attempt in many, many areas to do anything. And they blame the pandemic, or they blame the war in Ukraine. Truth of it is, the Conservative Party never actually believed in it. In fact, the people who then took over post the referendum and then post the European elections of 2019 had been my mortal enemies for 25 years. And suddenly those that had fought me were the defenders of national democracy, and we're going to deliver Brexit. They never believed in it. I'm not even sure Boris Johnson actually believed in it. It was a political expediency. Now, of course, there were some that did, but not the majority of the Conservative Party. So we find ourselves with some small victories. We stand taller on the world stage in terms of foreign policy. We proved with the vaccine rollout, whatever you think of it, that freed from, you know, that sort of dead hand of bureaucracy in the EU, there's more that we could do. But you ask, you know, the 5.5 million men and women running small businesses, have they felt a benefit? The answer is no. No. We simply haven't removed the regulations. And only now, 6.5 years on from the referendum, is a piece of legislation going to the House of Lords that would get rid of some of this nonsense. So look, we haven't delivered, but the big one, and this mustn't be ignored, the turnout in the referendum was over 10% higher than the so-called experts predicted. And do you know why? Because getting back control as an island of our national borders was seen to be a key priority. Tonight, Rishi Sunak has sent out an email to Conservative Party members saying 3 years on, we got Brexit done and we've taken back control of our borders. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. It's an outright lie. Legal immigration is running at levels hitherto never even dreamt of. And illegal immigration. I mean, look, I put that poster up, Dan. That poster of young men coming into the EU. I was condemned for it. But actually, what I was saying was, only by leaving can we stop this happening to us. And yet it's happened anyway. So there are millions of people out there who aren't very political, who are utterly hacked off at the lack of delivery on borders, on small business regulation, on financial services, on fisheries, and I could go on a list as long as your arm. And the problem is this. If I was polled now by The Guardian, you know, am I pleased with the way Brexit's worked out? I'm a negative. I am in the negative camp. And that is being taken by David Lammy in particular, you know, and Starmer, as a means where the next Labour government will keep us as close to EU rules as they possibly can.
Exactly. Whereas, as you point out, a lot of Brexiteers are dissatisfied about the fact that the Conservative government hasn't gone far enough. And look, you talk about Lammy, right? And actually, I think it's really important to acknowledge the nefarious role the broadcast media played in terms of doing down Brexiteers from the moment that the referendum result came in, because they hated it so much. And it feels to me, Nigel, but look, tell me if you think I'm wrong, but it feels to me like they are emboldened now. This is a moment because they're putting everything together, including all of the damage caused by the lockdowns, and blaming it on Brexit. And they're also emboldened by these new opinion polls.
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, I had, for 20 years, I was treated by mainstream broadcast media as no better than a war criminal. I mean, it was just extraordinary, for daring to say we should be independent. I mean, I was, the worst figure that had appeared in British politics for many, many decades, since the 30s. Look, if you listen to Radio 4 today, start with the Today programme, go through farming, go through the food programme, go through Woman's Hour, go right the way through, you will find every single programme blaming the problems we have today in this country on Brexit. And LBC this morning even broadcast without really even challenging a comment from Guy Verhofstadt, the foaming at the mouth former leader of the Liberal group in the European Parliament, the fact that Putin invaded Ukraine because of Brexit. And all of this goes on day after day, unchallenged. All of our ills get blamed on Brexit. Is it any wonder that people are getting disenchanted? So we have a real problem here that there is, whilst, we're not going to, we are not going to rejoin the EU for many, many, many years to come. The argument could be 5 or 10 years down the road. We're mirroring their laws, so why not have a say? That is some way off. The problem is we're heading back to Mrs May's Brino. Brexit in name only, Northern Ireland cut off from the rest of the United Kingdom, borders more open than they even were before the Brexit vote, and a political class in Westminster who are now more detached from the rest of the country on a whole raft of issues than they've ever been before. The question and the problem is, how do we fight this?
Yeah, so what's the solution?
Well, if I knew that, I'd bottle it. I don't know what the solution is, other than to say there may come a point, I don't think we're there yet, but there may come a point when we need to aim for a political revolution that is even bigger than Brexit itself was. And by that, what I mean is we have two main parties running this country who are now pretty much identical. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are small differences here and there on non-dom tax status or what they say about the EU. But, there's no point saying we're going to stop the boats and then not stopping the boats. I mean, Starmer won't stop the boats, but then Sunak won't either. And there may come a point in the next couple of years when the public are genuinely ready for an historical shift in terms of the parties that we see fit to govern us. The last time it really happened was after the First World War, when the Liberals, who'd been in power for a very, very long time, got literally replaced by the Labour Party. And if we do see this move back towards being aligned with EU rules, potential membership lined up in the years to come, with all that implies, then that moment may come. For now...
Yeah, we've seen it in France, we've seen it in Italy.
Well, and look at Italy, look at Italy. But then you come up against the problem of our electoral system.
Yeah.
Giorgia Meloni would have struggled to win a single seat in Westminster. And yet he's Prime Minister of Italy. So no, I'm not pretending there are any quick, easy solutions that I've managed to think through at this point. But what we cannot do is to betray that 100,000 people that I spoke to at the moment, when I did the countdown, at the moment we left the EU 3 years ago tonight, We cannot betray that historic victory against the establishment. And I will go on fighting for it. I will go on fighting for it. Dan, I don't yet know exactly how, but I will.
And we will do so here as well. But look, let's celebrate today. A toast to you on Independence Day. Nigel Farage, congratulations. My goodness, it was a historic achievement. Now, coming up, amid bullying allegations for being, quote, rude and abrasive, is Dominic Raab the latest victim of an MSM plot to purge the Tory government of its biggest names? My superstar panel return to debate that at 10, and we'll have a first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages then too. But first, as Donald Trump returns to the campaign trail and his egregious social media ban is lifted, could the former president make a Lazarus-style return? Star US journalist Meghan Kelly joins me stateside straight after the break.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed. So I guess they've always been quite woke. That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Meghan Kelly time, and Donald Trump is officially back after he formally launched his campaign for an extraordinary second term in the White House. Making appearances in the all-important primary states of New Hampshire and South Carolina, the Donald was on top form, tackling everything from illegal immigration to protecting women's sports. And in a week where Meta, that's like the crew behind Facebook, reinstated Trump's Instagram and Facebook accounts, he was back dropping those truth bombs, including about his Republican rival, Ron DeSantis. Watch.
They said he's not doing rallies, he's not campaigning. Maybe he's lost that step. I'm more angry now, and I'm more committed now than I ever was, because Just as we did 2 years ago, we're going to stop cold, the invasion on our border. That's an invasion, our southern border. And they're coming from prisons, and they're coming from mental institutions, and they're coming from a lot of bad places that it's going to cause us a lot of problems. Ron would have not been governor if it wasn't for me, and that's okay. Number one, he wouldn't have gotten the nomination. And number two, he wouldn't have beaten his Democrat opponent. So then when I hear he might run, you know, I consider that very disloyal, but it's not about loyalty. But to me it is. It's always about loyalty.
Meghan, he's back, surging in the polls. You know, were a lot of the pundits wrong to write a Trump comeback off just a few weeks ago?
Yes, absolutely. They were wrong. They wanted to take those lackluster midterm results for the Republicans and turn it into an albatross around Donald Trump's neck, saying he was done politically. How many times do they have to do that before they will learn that is a dumb mistake? Bet against Trump in the Republican Party at your own peril. We can talk about the general, but in the Republican Party, they still love him. And the fact that Ron DeSantis has a lot of fans too doesn't mean that Trump is not going to secure this nomination. In fact, what we're seeing in the polls now is that when it's a head-to-head matchup, Trump versus DeSantis, Trump sometimes wins, often loses. The most recent poll has him crushing Ron DeSantis by more than twice DeSantis's numbers. But that's where Trump starts to get vulnerable, when it's a two-man race for the Republican primary nomination. But Trump versus DeSantis plus anyone, Trump wins. He wins every time. If the non-Trump, the anti-Trump vote is split at all, Trump wins. And so all these people who hate Trump want to do head-to-head matchups in these polls because they know DeSantis was likely to come out ahead. They like DeSantis. The anti-Trump Republicans are still very powerful and very loud. But if you put anybody else in that race, which is reality, it's not going to be just DeSantis taking on Trump. Trump is dominant. The Republican Party still loves him. They are not the mainstream media. And I think the more he gets out there, if he can stay on message and stop griping about 2020 and how he secretly won, the more he's going to consolidate that vote.
Yeah, because there's got to be a massive field, isn't there? There's going to be a huge field of contenders. It's certainly not going to be DeSantis versus Trump. The thing I noted at the weekend, Meghan, is Trump was disciplined. You know, he pretty much stayed on message. Are we sort of seeing a new type of campaigner, or was this just a one-off?
We are seeing a new type of campaigner. We saw it in his campaign announcement as well, but there's no way he can maintain it. He can't. It's the thing that made people fall in love with him was when the Clark Kent pulls the shirt open and the Superman comes out, like the one who says all the terrible things and incites people and drives the media crazy and the left crazy. You could see it even in New Hampshire and Iowa this past week when he was campaigning for the first time in those two critical early states. He was on message, and then just a little bit about 2020 and how he secretly did win, and then back on message. You're like, okay, wait, I'm not supposed to be talking about it. So I think that's probably how it's going to go. I think his voters will be fine with that. They actually do believe he won. And this is where the Ron DeSantis rivalry becomes relevant, too. You heard his soundbite there saying, I think it's disloyal, right? That DeSantis would not have won in Florida as governor had it not been for Donald Trump. True. DeSantis does owe much of his political success to Trump. And the Trump diehards, they're mad. They actually don't think it's Ron DeSantis' time. They think Trump got screwed out of his first term, that he got screwed out of his second term, and that Ron DeSantis needs to take a seat so that Trump can have a real term as president without the media trying to tear him down, without the left giving him double impeachments, without him getting the fake loss in the election, right? And let him have the stage. And DeSantis will have his turn later.
Because he's a young man. Exactly, he's a young man. I sort of understand that. Meghan, how do you feel personally about a third Trump presidential campaign? I mean, we'll all remember 2016, where obviously you were sucked into that narrative and became a target of Trump. Is this something that personally you're looking forward to or personally dreading?
Well, I mean, I'm very much over what happened between me and Trump back in 15, 16. As bizarre and big as that was in my life, I moved on from that pretty quickly. This is the problem, by the way, for a lot of the reporters that he attacks. You have to remember, you're not the story. Even if he makes you the story, you owe it to your viewers and your readers to take yourself out of it. That's called being a professional. Too many won't. In any event, So my main thought on it, Dan, is that as a reporter, as a commentator, a news analyst, I love it. Like, don't you want to see it?
I'm salivating. I have to be honest, I'm salivating. Totally. I'm not going to lie, I'm salivating over the idea of another Trump campaign, and I'm glad that you are too. I guess it's always going to be the inner journalist in us. But Meghan Kelly,
boring.
Lots on this, and of course Meghan is the host of the brilliant Meghan Kelly Show, which you can find on Sirius XM, YouTube, and as a podcast. Great shows this week, Meghan. I have been listening. Still to come, as we celebrate 3 years of independence, how can we stop the deranged MSM and establishment campaign to destroy the Brexit dream once and for all? Former Tory Minister, prominent Brexiteer Sir John Redwood joins me live at 10:15. But next, as Jacob Rees-Mogg warns we shouldn't be too snowflakey, have the MSM been too quick to condemn Dominic Raab over his bullying allegations, which apparently amount to sort of being a bit abrasive and rude? My Superstar panel back with that in just 2 minutes' time.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, it's 3 years to the day since our glorious exit from the EU. But does the Brexit dream remain under threat from the political establishment, blob, and determined MSM?
Not be more honest to acknowledge that Brexit is failing on its own terms for business.
Essentially, the gig is up. 3 years in, and not really anybody is pretending that things are going to get better.
Well, former Conservative Minister, prominent Brexiteer Sir John Redwood reveals what the government needs to do to neutralise an imminent Ramona coup. His unmissable analysis from inside Westminster this Independence Day coming up at 10:15. Ahead of teacher strikes tomorrow, a shocking new ad campaign from the NEU shows actual kids being used to peddle their propaganda. So should parents invoice for the cost of extra childcare and lost wages caused by the strikes? Calvin McKenzie speaks for furious parents across the country as he takes on the union barons in Uncancelled at 10:40. The pressure is mounting on the First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, after her close ally told gender bill rebels to leave the SNP. So, has Queen Nick destroyed her party and herself by pandering to this woke trans lunacy? Plus, eggs hurled at the King, and now this directed at the Princess of Wales. I'll delve into both those stories with my superstar panel in the Media Buzz. Tonight, I'm joined by Amanda Platel, Calvin Robinson and Rebecca Reed. As Dominic Raab faces bullying allegations for being randomly rude and abrasive, is Jacob Rees-Mogg right to warn about a rise of the snowflakes in high-pressure work environments? That's our big debate next. And finally, watch the jungle rat Matt Hancock try to wriggle out of being paid £320,000.
Are you telling the truth when you say that it wasn't your primary motivation?
Absolutely. Of course.
So did you negotiate over the fee?
Of course there was a discussion and negotiation over the fee.
He won't be smiling after my vote when I crown today's greatest Britain and Union jackass at 10:50. We'll have the first newspaper front pages. They're arriving in just mere moments, hot off the press, right after your news at 10 with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. Tens of thousands of teachers in England and Wales have joined the UK's largest education union to take part in nationwide strikes tomorrow. The National Education Union says 40,000 school staff signed up for the move in a fortnight. Tomorrow is the first of 7 days of strikes by the union during February and March amid a dispute over pay. The Education Minister, Nick Gibb, describes the strikes as disruptive.
It is disappointing that the NEU has decided to go ahead with these strikes when we are still discussing issues of pay and workload and other issues very constructively. Even yesterday we were having those discussions, and strikes are disruptive to children's education, particularly after the 2 years of disruption during the COVID pandemic, and it's disrupting to parents and families as well.
A new report by the International Monetary Fund is predicting a negative outlook for the UK's economy. It forecasts that the UK's gross domestic product, or GDP, will shrink by 0.6% over the coming year, even though in October the IMF had expected a growth of 0.3%. However, the Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, says Britain actually outperformed many other financial forecasts last year, despite higher interest rates and tighter government budgets. But the Shadow Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, is blaming the IMF's stance on 13 years of Conservative economic policy.
The UK economy has got huge potential, and yet the government is failing to seize that initiative. And we see today, with these forecasts from the IMF, with the UK now at the bottom of the league table for growth, both this year and next, the government needs to be doing so much more to fulfil the potential of the UK economy.
Let's just bring you some breaking news we're receiving in the last few minutes. Police in Milton Keynes are telling us that a 4-year-old girl has died after reports of a dog attack. Apparently, officers were called to a house in the Netherfield area shortly after 5 o'clock this evening. They say they found the little girl in the back garden and she died at the scene. No arrests have been made, and we understand the dog has been humanely destroyed. That news just into us concerning a death in Milton Keynes. Now, in news away from home, the actor Alec Baldwin has been officially charged with involuntary manslaughter over the fatal shooting on the set of the film Rust. Cinematographer Helena Hutchins was killed during rehearsals in the US state of New Mexico in 2021 when a prop gun that Baldwin was using fired a live round. Baldwin says he never pulled the trigger and that it was a tragic accident. He could face, though, up to 5 years in jail if he's convicted. And just lastly from me tonight, the Princess of Wales says it's essential to know what's needed to help the future generation become happy, healthy adults, launching her new early years campaign called Shaping Us. The Princess says she hopes to help people understand just how important early childhood affects later life and indeed adulthood. Kensington Palace says the importance of early years development will be a key focus for Kate for the rest of her life. That's it from me. Now back to Dan.
Tomorrow's news tonight now in our Media Buzz. First front pages. straight to the Metro, actually, which says, "You still don't get it." Matt Hancock, as the disgraced former Health Secretary, is slammed for claiming over £300,000 for his I'm a Celeb gig, despite claiming it was not about the money. I'm going to tell you more about that and show you this extraordinary encounter, actually, in the media buzz at 10:30. The Guardian reports that 500,000 people are set to strike tomorrow, with serious disruption predicted on railways, in schools and at airports. The Eye reports that angry Tories confronted anti-growth low or high tax Jeremy Hunt over his refusal to cut taxes. The Chancellor currently holding firm to his economic plan, despite Tory grandee Sir Edward Lee pleading for tax cuts before spring 2024. And a fascinating revelation on the front page of The Independent, which quotes Her Late Majesty the Queen as telling Prince Andrew, "Do charity work to clear your name and find redemption." My superstar panel back with me now. Top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, Conservative commentator the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Old habits die hard for the mainstream media because just a day after the sacking of Nadeem Zahawi, a new witch hunt has begun against a senior Conservative politician, this time the Deputy PM Dominic Raab. Searching for their next Tory target, The Times deemed reports about Raab being randomly rude and abrasive as worthy of making their front page today. Now, Raab is facing 8 formal complaints of bullying, and Rishi Sunak has commissioned an independent investigation by an employment law expert. But as the woke mob already seek to get him the chop, future GB News star Jacob Rees-Mogg was on hand to give the common sense view.
I think we've got to be slightly careful about the bullying allegations. Got to wait and see.
You
did indeed, quite rightly.
Yep.
But also, we mustn't be too snowflakey about it. People need to be able to say this job has not been done well enough and needs to be done better.
Amen for Jacob Rees-Mogg, and that's what you're going to be getting on GB News very soon. But Amanda Patel, I think he's completely right. Obviously, I wasn't in the room, but from everything I've read and from everything I've heard, this is not bullying by Raab. This is actually being a tough boss in a very difficult situation, trying to do everything you can for the country. And you've worked in the cut and thrust of high-level Tory politics, and I imagine it sometimes gets a little bit abrasive, right?
It is brutal. First of all, I'd like to say I love Dominic Raab. I mean, not in a kind of familiar way.
You fancy him?
Shut up. I do. I told you I'd never tell you I fancied. But if you had to do which one, if you had to, I know who'd be up there. Anyway, he is a brilliant politician. He is really tough. He is forensic with the work he does.
Yeah.
And let's remember he was a true, to his core, Brexiteer. And that's one of the reasons that they're out to get him.
That's why they hate him, just like they called Priti Patel a bully.
And after Zahawi's political death, there's blood in the water. And then you get the mainstream media circling because they want another scalp. Do not let it be Dominic Raab's. And he, honestly, you know, I've worked in those circumstances. If someone shouted at you, you know, the snowflakes, oh, my mental health, you know, I'm feeling really terrible. Someone says, actually, that work isn't good enough. And Dominic would say that. He'd say, that's not up to it. And let's not forget that behind his back, he has the saboteurs of the civil service. Even the permanent secretary is out to get him. They want to get him. Don't let them get him. If these people can't cope in that situation, two of my underlings when I worked at CCO, Conservative Central Office, were Priti Patel and Penny Mordaunt. We all went through. It's bloody in politics. It's boiling. And it's really exciting, and it's a privilege to be there. And you've got these kind of, you know, snowflakes coming out and saying, oh, he threw his Pret sandwich in the bin and it gave me traumas for 3 days. So just go out. Yeah, go out and work at Pret.
I totally agree. Or go and get a job in a library or a florist or something that's going to
excuse me, florists are very skilled jobs.
No, I know it's skilled, but it's not a bullying.
No, the thing is, what they're doing is they're conflating bullying with what is normal in any serious, really important organisation where you hold people to account for their work, and if it's not good enough, you say
but they don't want to be held to account. That's the issue, isn't it? And Calvin Robinson, this is a slippery slope, because now, and this is exactly what the media wanted him to do, they've cornered Sunak. They've said, you have to have the toughest, most stringent standards, and anyone who isn't cleared by an independent investigation will go. I'm sorry, what is the definition of bullying? I think you could probably find 20 claims of bullying against any minister doing a good job in Westminster.
Yeah, I've spoken to some of my friends who've worked with Rob. They always say he's not the nicest guy, he's firm, he's strict, but he's good at his job. He gets it done. And like Amanda says, that's what politics is.
Rude and abrasive, last time I looked, is not a sackable offence.
Indeed. No. I think he's more stubborn than other politicians. I don't think he will let the mainstream media take his head like we've seen with other politicians, well, just this week, actually. But who selects our ministers?
Well, Sunak would be overright if he gets rid of his deputy PM. I mean, Raab stuck by him throughout the entire summer. He stuck by him even when Truss was in post. If Sunak is prepared to throw Raab under the bus, I think he's finished.
Yeah, at that point, we're saying the mainstream media chooses the government.
Yeah.
And that's
well, they sort of already do. Look at Chairman Hunt as Chancellor. I mean, Rebecca Reid, I guess, you know, you're a little bit snowflakey. Do you feel...
I can't hear every single week.
Yes,
I think I deserve not to be called
That's
snowflakey.
why I said a little bit snowflakey,
you.
because you are brave enough to be on the sofa, which I have huge respect for. But come on, being rude and abrasive.
I mean, look...
should get you sacked as Deputy Prime Minister. No, I want my Deputy Prime Minister actually to have high standards of the people working for
High standards, sure, but everyone keeps saying, like, oh, this piece of work wasn't good enough in a very flat tone. That's fine. Nobody's saying you can't do that. I've worked here for 2 years. Work is a strong word. No one's ever, apart from Calvin, shouted at me. I have never... No, I've never been... Maybe you have. I've never been...
But if we do it on air, it stays on air.
OK, but Dan, I have never
Have I
heard...
not shouted at you?
Oh, on air, yes, on air. But
You shouted last week when my mic was off.
Anyway...
You're a very naughty girl.
My point is, before this descends, my point is, I've worked with you for a long time and I have never heard of you shouting at anybody, ever. You might say, oh, a piece of work didn't work or whatever, but you are a controlled professional
But what if I
adult.
was rude and abrasive? Shouldn't lose my job over it.
Arguably, I think you should. You do shout at the air conditioning. But
and my chair's collapsing at the moment. That's the latest
But you
thing
are
I'm
good at your
shouting
job. And one of the reasons, I can't believe I'm saying this, but one of the reasons you're good at your job is because you are not horrible to people. You are perhaps firm, but you do not lose your temper.
I know,
and that's how you have a workable
But I think
workplace.
every now and then, in a very high-pressure, stressful
not
job,
a very high-pressure,
being
stressful job?
rude and abrasive
Is this not a stressful
not
job?
a bad thing.
And what
Of
do those
course it
words
is.
mean? What does rude mean?
Yeah.
You know,
One person's rude is another firm.
Did he not throw a Pratt sandwich at somebody?
No, he threw a tomato into a salad bowl.
I would
Come
say
on.
my boss should never throw food at me. Would be
No,
like,
he did not throw
aimed
it.
at someone.
He threw it in the bin, and one cherry tomato was released from the sandwich and became a projectile. And they're saying he abused me.
I
I'm
mean, when
thinking,
Naomi
oh,
Campbell
please.
threw her phone, she got cancelled. Like, all I'm saying is that we have, like, people
Throwing
shouldn't
a
throw
phone
things
in
at
someone's
people.
face.
I think
it's not
Dominic Raab is
Be a grown-up,
snowflakey.
and I think there are many clever people who are able to run an office without shouting at people. Everybody here included.
In politics, I would completely disagree. I've shouted.
We can shout in the green.
And I've been shouted at.
Yeah, exactly. Now, after Netflix wisely dumped Pearl, remember that, Meghan Markle's woke cartoon for kids? Kate Middleton has been busy getting her projects over the line. The Princess of Wales Shaping Up campaign was launched today alongside her own animation. Oh, this is the first time I've seen this, actually.
It's quite creepy, Dan, actually.
Looks nice, Rebecca, with the goal of raising awareness about the importance of a child's early years when it comes to their development. However, at the launch event in Kirkgate Market in Leeds, got a bit saucy. Kate was wolf whistled by a member of the public in attendance. Watch. Now, the egoist in Kate might have had an idea to speak about that ordeal on a podcast all about her, perhaps released on Spotify. But something tells me she will stick to directly improving the lives of young people instead. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Amanda Patel, do stand by, because coming up, with a close ally of Nicola Sturgeon telling gender bill rebels to leave the party, has the SNP's supreme leader sparked a civil war in her own party? My Superstar panel debate that at 10:30. But next, it's 3 years to the day since our glorious exit from the EU. Happy Independence Day. But are the political establishment and the MSM set on destroying the Brexit dream? Former Conservative Minister, top Brexiteer Sir John Redwood reveals what the government must do to stop the Remainer coup. He's live straight after the break.
He's the king of breakfast TV and he's back.
Eamon Holmes back on the TV with me this morning.
remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh, good.
Already to bless.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway,
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pearce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, 3 years ago to this very day, the Conservatives, led by Boris Johnson, officially got Brexit done as he announced our glorious departure from the European Union. Look.
The most important thing to say tonight is that this is not an end, but a beginning. This is the moment when the dawn breaks and the curtain goes up on a new act in our great national drama. I know that we can turn this opportunity into a stunning success.
But since then, the spectre of a Ramona blob continues to trail the halls of Westminster, and if Keir Starmer is installed as PM, these dark forces will do all they can to undermine the biggest democratic mandate in our history. Well, joining me on this Independence Day is the former Conservative Minister, of course a prominent Brexiteer, Sir John Redwood. So, John, so look, today should be a day of great celebration. You know, we should probably be looking back and thinking what an amazing 3 years we've had. Isn't this brilliant? We've embraced all of these Brexit opportunities. It hasn't really turned out that way, has it?
Well, I still feel great today because I'm very proud of what the British people voted for.
Absolutely.
And I think it's great that we do have a parliament that can now change our laws, could change our taxes and could spend our money wisely. But I'm still looking for that Parliament to seize the initiative. It's extremely frustrating that so many MPs and the civil servants behind them resist every opportunity for an improvement, for a change in the law. Why haven't we got VAT off domestic fuel already? Why aren't we driving for a much bigger fishing industry as we take control of our fishing waters? Why aren't we using the freedom to put some money behind growing more food in Britain? We lost huge amounts of market share in the Common Agricultural Policy, and we should now be reversing that. I'm full of ideas on how Brexit can be great, and I need more MPs and government ministers who would just get on with it.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness, I couldn't agree more. What an inspiring message. I mean, look, the problem is, John, you've obviously got the political establishment, the blob, the MSM. They are seizing the opportunity to do down Brexit. They don't take into account what happened with the lockdowns. They want to blame everything on Brexit. So you're right, this has to come from within the Conservative Party. Sunak obviously was a Brexiteer. He voted for Brexit, but he seems to have gone a bit soft. Do you think we can trust the Prime Minister, especially given he has a Ramona-in-Chief as his Chancellor?
Well, I want him to do well, and I will continue to give public and private advice for them to do better. But it's quite obvious we're missing so many of the opportunities, and those of us who are impatient for our country to succeed and prosper to a much greater extent would urge him to live the brand and get on with it. And I think sometimes, yes, he takes too much gloomy advice from Treasury officials and Bank of England, and we haven't even broken free from the austerity-type economics, which was mandatory under the rules of the European Union. We're still hung up on debt figures and silly forecasts, which usually get it hopelessly wrong, instead of going for growth in a sensible way and having tax cuts that would actually pay for themselves, because if you grew faster, the deficit will come down.
Well, indeed, and I want to talk to you about the financial situation in just a second. But before I do, Rishi Sunak has sent an email to Conservative Party members tonight, and I've had a lot of response from your members who are viewers of this show, saying they're very angry that at the top of the email, Sunak claims to have taken back control of our borders. It feels very difficult to say that, doesn't it, John, when you've got 80,000 predicted to stream across the channel and what Suella Braverman, and I agree, has described as an illegal invasion of this country. So, yes, we could take back our borders, but it involves leaving the ECHR. You know, we haven't taken back control of our borders yet, have we?
No, indeed. And I thought the Prime Minister fully understood that, because I was very pleased when he made his statement of the 5 things he wished to do. Number one, I think, when he was ordering the priorities, would he had to get on top of the small boats and make sure people didn't undertake those unsafe crossings and then expect to be put up in hotels when they arrived in the United Kingdom. It's not good enough. It's not what most sensible people want. It's not what we voted for. And so I would urge the Prime Minister again tonight, just get on with it. You know what you've got to do. You studied it. You need to change the law because the lawyers, so many of them, get big fees to try and thwart the wishes of the British people. So Parliament has got to make even more crystal clear the willpower of this government to stop the votes.
Get on with it, Rishi. Such a good message. Now, look, I want to talk to you about the financial situation. Yesterday in the Daily Telegraph, you said that Jeremy Hunt has become a slave to Treasury groupthink, writing that his aversion to cutting tax rates is stifling growth and failing to get inflation and the deficit down. And just like clockwork, today, Mr. Edward, the IMF predicted that the UK will be the only major economy to shrink this year as we look to enter a recession. So, I'm sorry, John, and I know this isn't a popular thing to say, but surely it begs the question, was Liz Truss actually right all along in her mission to focus on growth?
Well, of course she was, and I supported her. Unfortunately, she and her Chancellor went too far and upset the establishment of the Bank of England and the Treasury. And the Bank of England, I think, should take considerable responsibility for the way the bond market behaved, which was what was meant to have been caused by the Chancellor, but it actually started with the Bank of England hiking interest rates and threatening to sell an awful lot of bonds at cheap prices, which was clearly destabilising to the market. So none of that was helpful. I mean, the good news is, we can share tonight, that the Chancellor himself says he wants a growth budget, and the Prime Minister has made growth one of his 5 aims. But my challenge to them is, if you're serious about that, you cannot do it without lower tax rates. And if you go for lower tax rates, particularly on business, you will collect more money. Every time we cut the corporation tax rate, more money came in. Every time we cut the top rate of income tax, more money came in. More rich people stayed here, more rich people ventured their money here, more rich people created more jobs here, and they paid more tax. What's not to like?
Totally agree. If only more current Conservative ministers had your verve, enthusiasm and passion for Brexit, I think we would be in a good place. But you have made me feel more positive, nonetheless, this Independence Day. Sir John Redwood, of course.
Well, we can do it, but we've got to persuade them, haven't we?
We do. Just do it, Rishi. Come on.
Easy, and we have to keep on arguing, and thanks for what you do.
Indeed. Thank you so much, John. Happy Independence Day. Now, coming up in Uncancelled, as education unionists use children for their sick propaganda campaign, should parents invoice for the extra childcare and lost wages caused by their striking? Galvin McKenzie speaks up for furious parents up and down the country. He's live with me at 10:40. But next, as the SNP's few supporters of women's rights are told to resign by a key Sturgeon ally, has Queen Nick destroyed her own party by pandering to this woke trans extremism? My superstar panel back to discuss that, plus more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Do stay with us.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions. I have no time for cultural totalitarianism. We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's return to tomorrow's news tonight now in our media buzz. More front pages have been delivered. The Sun leads with the really terrible news that fears are growing over missing mother of two Nicole Bulley after she vanished on Friday morning. The Daily Express reports that there has been a staggering 16.7% rise in food prices as cash-strapped families face the steepest increase in grocery shopping costs since records began. More in the media buzz now with tonight's superstar panel. Top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Patel, the Conservative commentator, the Reverend Calvin Robinson, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, the SNP and Scheming Sturgeon are still reeling from this car crash interview during which the fumbling First Minister admitted that trans women will be treated differently to biological women, you know, real women after all.
My question is, are all trans women women? You haven't answered that question.
Well, that's not the point that we're dealing with here.
That's the question I'm asking.
Trans women are women, but in the prison context, there is no automatic right for a trans woman.
So there are contexts where a trans woman is not a woman?
No, there is. Look, we're talking here about trans women.
And I'm now asking about women born as women.
I don't think there are circumstances there.
So after hearing their leader embarrassingly admit that she's actually a TERF too, a group of people who I'm proud to associate with but who Sturgeon has long demonised, let's not forget, a crisis in confidence is now spreading through the SNP. Separatist MPs like Alan Smith now find themselves unable to answer basic questions on women's safety.
What's your take on that? Do you think trans people who are convicted of crimes like that should be in women's jails?
I have nothing to say on that.
Smith, a close ally of Sturgeon, has also threatened to spark a civil war by demanding that any SNP politician who opposes their sick gender reform bill should resign and stand as an independent. Sturgeon's archenemy J.K. Rowling perfectly summed up the ridiculous corner that the SNP has painted itself into, tweeting, "I don't know about you, but excluding women from women's prisons just because they've got penises, male pattern baldness and have committed a couple of rapes seems awfully turfy to me." So, was Scheming Sturgeon's embrace of extremist woke ideology the beginning of the end for her and the SNP? Because, Amanda Patel, when push comes to shove, Sturgeon is a TERF. And I love the fact, and I did it on the show yesterday, I'm going to do it tonight, being a TERF, that's not a bad thing. You know, we have to reclaim this word.
Well, we do, but she's clearly not reclaiming it, is she, Dan? I mean,
she's been forced into it.
What she's done is, as Nicola Sturgeon, as I like to refer to as that overstuffed little haggis, I'm not sure if that is a male or a female. I just put that thought there. No, I did not say that.
Oh.
An overstuffed little haggis, is that male or female? Or is it transitioning? I don't know. Anyway, the point of this is, her policy was that she reduced the voting age in Scotland to 16. She even said in an interview 2 weeks ago that she thought the legal age for drinking in Scotland should be 16. Given they've got twice the mortality rate for alcoholism, it was a bit of a weird choice. She is pursuing the youth vote because she thinks that's going to save her because her polls are plummeting, Labour is resurging in Scotland, and then she thought, I've got this great policy. I'm going to get all the young people on board, and I get mixed up with the names, Dan, so I've got to refer to my notes. And then along came Adam Graham, or is it Isla Bryson, a double rapist? And her whole strategy for appealing to young people and saying this is a wonderful new world was totally blown apart. And she's in smithereens at the moment. She doesn't know where to go. She's contradicting herself, and God, I just kind of love it.
I do too, but Rebecca, apparently you're very angry about this discussion. Why?
Because I don't think that the trans part of the discussion is being had in good faith. And so when we talked about it last week, I felt like I didn't feel like I represented myself the way I wanted to. And subsequently, having looked into it more, both the victims of the rapist in question and the former partner, Isla, or I can't remember what their original...
Adam or Isla.
I call him Adam Graham and I call him a
take
he.
a pick.
The problem is that you try and have a sensible discussion and then you end up talking about what you should call them rather than discussion. So anyway, that person...
Just call him a double rapist.
The double rapist, two things. First of all, their former partner said that they're actually not trans, that this is just a play.
And, so
I think they're probably likely to know.
But the thing is, you say it's not important, I will let you finish your point, but the Gender Reform Recognition Bill would actually does actually force the victims of rape to refer to their alleged rapist
the penis that raped
in court as she or her or whatever their new name is. And there was an opportunity for Sturgeon to actually overturn that part of the bill and say, while you're on trial for rape, you cannot self-ID. And she personally voted against that amendment and it went through as a result.
I think the mad thing to me about what Sturgeon did is that she decided that really this isn't really about trans stuff for her, it's about Scotland. And this was the vehicle she chose for her ideological independence thing. But
so she's made trans people the whipping boy or
she has,
girl.
but also what I don't understand is if you were going to use one single hero figure for this discussion, why would you pick a double rapist who it turns out probably isn't actually trans?
She didn't do any of the work into it.
And this is the thing. She didn't do the research.
She didn't see the unforeseen consequences.
But she was told.
But come on, excuse me, Dan.
That was
she basically the recognition bill allows people to self-identify at 16. It's all about 16-year-olds. It's all about getting
or rapist or child abuse.
Calvin,
Calvin, she was warned and told time and again. And do you know what's so despicable and why I'm so angry about what Scheming Sturgeon did? Not only did she ignore that advice, she denigrated folk like like J.K. Rowling. She allowed her MPs to go to protests where these horrible, vile people were holding up signs saying decapitate TERFs.
The number of trans people in Scotland would fit in this room. She's used them as a weapon,
as
a tool
I agree with that.
for her election campaigns. And she hasn't thought through the consequences that we've all been talking about for months on end. And now it's the roosters come home. What's the phrase? The chickens come home to roost.
Chickens come home to roost.
And she was stumbling through that interview because she sees the consequences of her direct policies has resulted in damage to women, in harm to women.
So Rebecca, are you prepared to say that it's no longer a put down to call someone a TERF for trans exclusion?
I mean, I've been called a TERF multiple times.
Let's not use their language, though.
I would never use that kind of terminology. The moment you use their terminology, you've given into their...
Well, it's just a normal person.
No, but to be fair, for what it actually...
I'm just a woman who doesn't have a penis, OK?
But for what it actually means...
Who's worried about women's rights?
I think it probably should be used in the same way that SWERF is, which is sex worker exclusionary radical feminist, which means there are feminists who don't believe that sex work is legitimate work, and that is a school of feminism. It's not one that I share, but it is one that I comprehend. We should be able to have a grown-up conversation.
Calvin's struggling with
I've got to say, I'm completely lost here. I have to say...
No, because prostitution is when you have penetrative sex for money, whereas sex work is an umbrella term which includes things like...
All I can see right now is how fantastic Rebecca looks tonight and how gorgeous her bosom is.
Thanks,
I'm afraid I'm lost in all these terms.
I was literally about to pull my what's wrong with me?
Is that really sexist?
No, but
Rebecca,
we will
I
move
apologise.
I'll take it all day long.
Because despite abandoning his constituents for a sordid appearance on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, Matt Hancock swore, do you remember this? That it was all for a good cause, with his enormous fee going to charity. Just when you think he couldn't stoop any lower, it's come to light that of his £320,000 payment from ITV, the little weasel donated just £10,000 of it to charity, a measly 3%. And earlier today, the disgraced former health secretary made yet another shameful TV appearance where he was banged to rights for his duplicity. Watch.
Are you telling the truth when you say that it wasn't your primary motivation?
Absolutely, I am. Absolutely. Of course.
So did you negotiate over the fee?
Of course there was a discussion and negotiation over the fee. There always is.
You've only given £10,000 to two charities, which is a tiny fraction of the fee. So if the money wasn't important to you, why have you held on to most of it?
Well, I did absolutely give some of the money to charity.
£10,000
yeah,
out of 330.
and they're two brilliant charities.
No, come on, 10,000. I'm talking about the amount, not the charities. £10,000.
If you didn't do it for the money, why not give the money to the causes which need it?
I said I didn't primarily do it for the money, but also... You know,
but if you've only given £10,000 to charity and you've kept 320, it would seem to most people who can do basic arithmetic that you did do it for the money. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily wrong. I just want a clear and honest answer for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm giving you. I didn't primarily do it for the money. I primarily did it to try to show who I really am.
Oh, we know who you really are, Hancock. We know who you really are. Now, look, Matt, however much you try to slither out of this hole, we all know why you went on the show. Pure vanity and a chance to line your own pockets. So put an end to this embarrassing charade. Rebecca Reid, Calvin Robinson, Amanda Patel, do stand by because coming up, that great little jungle rat, he's going to be under the microscope again when we crown today's greatest Britain and Union Jackass at 10:50. But next in Uncancelled, as the NEU exploit young children for their twisted propaganda campaign, should parents invoice for the extra childcare and lost wages caused by their walkouts? Fleet Street legend Calvin McKenzie, he's angry about this and he's got to make a stand for hard-working parents, students and common sense live after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. And a shocking new union ad campaign has exposed the lengths the Marxist mobs will go to manipulate support for strike action. On the eve of walkouts that will see half of schools in England and Wales close, the National Education Union posted this photo of a young schoolgirl holding a "My Teacher is Worth More" placard. The despicable propaganda is part of a twisted support drive that's exploiting children by encouraging them to make banners and strike boxes to sustain picket lines. Now, the selfish action has left millions of parents scrambling for last-minute childcare at great personal cost, but these union barons don't give a damn about hard-working Brits or the children still recovering from the pandemic disruption, do they? So let me bring Calvin McKenzie in now. So, Calvin, you've got an idea. You've got an idea here, and you think parents should be able to invoice the NEU for all of the costs that they're going to have to pay tomorrow.
Well, there will be parents who have to have extra childcare tomorrow because their children would have been in school, and there will be other parents who will who don't have the ability to get a relative or a friend or somebody to look after their child, and they're going to have to take a day off. Now, this will cost them money. I'm sure many employers will be helpful. Look, can I just say one thing? Can I just reiterate how the teachers are doing? So we mustn't drop any tears for the teacher. Starting salary as of September, 30,000, 40,000 a year average earnings. employee contribution to pensions 23.5% against a commercial average of 3 to 5%. 6 months sick pay. So if you go sick, you're on 100% pay for 6 months and then 50% for the next 6, which is fantastic compared to normal, right? No night work, no weekend work. That drives the teachers mad, by the way. And the chances of being fired if you're hopeless as a teacher are zilch. And that's why the lefties all pile into teaching, because you can't be dismissed no matter almost how inept you are. Have you ever heard of a teacher being fired for being inept? Now, I have in my wider family had teachers in the family, and one of them quit because the head teacher never supported the ordinary teachers when the children were vile. If you get a 15 or 16-year-old at a comprehensive, big kind of guy and tells you to F off, right? Instead of that kid being kicked out of the school or being sent on detention, the head teacher comes to you and says, look, I quite understand that Tommy went a little bit too far. Can you just accommodate him this time? And you say no, that doesn't carry. The head teachers are a kind of liberal left elite at the comprehensive school. There's very few tough ones. In fact, there's a brilliant academic lady who's a Tory, and she is almost unique in the head teacher world. There is nobody, who is fighting for many of the teachers who want some kind of strength. But the worst aspect of that tweet that I saw on the National Education Union site is the fact of who is that daughter? Yes. Who is that little girl? Does she know she's being used? Is she the daughter of a union official? We should be told. Is she the daughter of teachers? We should be told. Don't you think that this is... And what it also made me think was this final point. Do you believe that, in fact, the teachers look upon, are there lots of lefty teachers out there who look upon the classroom as a way of putting forward their political views and their views about organised labour to these little minds that think, my teacher is being, or my parents are being exploited and we need to rise up? And how do you know that in 15 years' time they don't turn out to be some rather lefty political figure? I know it's carrying a little bit too far, but have you ever seen at those national education conferences, the union conference every year, you look down, one of the things that they're trying to bring in, these are people of the way left, and they are in our schools. And now we see what's going on now. They call themselves a profession. Tell me, a profession is highly skilled. I'm not saying their degrees aren't worthwhile, right? I'm not saying their degrees aren't worthwhile, but actually a constant learning profession. Are they a constant learning profession? And when did you last see the lawyers or the accountants go on strike? Nobody goes, are they professionals? And do professionals go on picket lines?
Well, the thing is,
do they go on picket lines?
No, and the thing is, I think good teachers do professionally develop. I mean, look, I'm actually incredibly fond of teachers because both of my parents are, and my dad was a head teacher.
They don't feel the same about you, Dan.
Very true. No, totally untrue. But what I would say is that what is concerning me is about the political indoctrination. I mean, you point to that tweet from the National Education Union. They say, if you have made your own placard for Wednesday, please send it to us and we will share it. They're almost encouraging students. And the union boss is actively encouraging students to support their teachers. Now, I think that's disgraceful. That's not something my parents would ever have done, because that is imparting your political views on students, which is totally inappropriate. And I think any teacher doing that is wrong, but we know it's happening.
Yes. My issue is this as well. You're the head teacher, right? Now, honestly, they are hewn out of the kind of liberal left world. So I haven't got a lot of time for them. Why can't they say to a teacher, are you going on strike or not? They basically probably know whether they're going to go on strike or not. But the idea that they can't
because they're not telling
make any
them
plans They can't make any plans about, and it's not about the school plans. I don't give a stuff about the school. I don't give a stuff about the teachers. All I care about is the parents who are strangely paying their wages and now going to be penalised because they don't know when they turn up tomorrow morning, is my school open or not? Right? Now, there's a very good chance the head teacher will have a good bet for it, but he or she cannot be sure. It's a massively frustrating thing, and I know from my Twitter feed. Right? You want to read a strange Twitter feed? Read it's not. There's tens of thousands come on who are absolutely appalled by what's going. And I'm sure normally they quite like their teachers. They don't like them for what they're doing now. They are acting like unionised thugs from the 70s. It is shocking.
It is, and it's been allowed to happen. And I think the indoctrination of pupils in particular needs to stop. And actually, this is something that folk in government like Kemi Badenoch have been very good on when it comes to critical race theory. But it's not just about race. It's about a left-wing indoctrination, a whole range of political issues. And I think the strike in England and Wales tomorrow is going to be absolutely disgraceful. Thank you for calling some of the shocking behaviour by the National Education Union out. That's Calvin McKenzie. We'll speak next week, Calvin.
Thank you.
But it's time now to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. My superstar panel return. Amanda Platel, who is your nominee for tonight's greatest Britain?
I'd like to nominate the 17.5 million Brits who voted for Brexit, although I think I probably won't win because I was one of them. And I can't nominate myself.
Oh, you can in this case.
Of course you can. I'm nominating myself.
And actually, we don't have any rules about that. Nominate yourself every week if you want to look egotistical. Calvin McKenzie. Calvin Robinson.
Nigel Farage, because Brexit would not have happened if it was not for that man.
Good choice.
And he was brilliant on the show earlier tonight. And Rebecca Reid, I presume another Brexit-related nominee?
No, abortion, my other thing. Sorry, Calvin. BPAS, the British Pregnancy Advisory Service, who it was the final part of getting the anti-abortion buffer zone legislation through today, went through the House of Lords. It's great news for women. Fantastic news for women.
Great news for murdering babies. Fantastic.
So you're very opposed on that one. Yes. But I'm actually going to go for a double winner tonight. We don't do this often, but I can't pick between Amanda and Calvin because, of course, Nigel Farage, our Brexit hero, and he's made so many great strides. And actually, would we be here without the campaigning by Farage, which he said earlier in the show, saw him treated as worse than a war criminal by the British media. But we also wouldn't be here without the 17.5 million incredibly brave people who ignored their neighbours and their Facebook friends.
I don't want a joint decision.
You don't want to share a joint
sorry,
It's a joint winner.
I don't think we have joint winners.
History has made this Independence Day.
Should we have another referendum about who won?
Congratulations,
Let's have a referendum from the viewers.
Union Jackass time now, Amanda. You might have a chance to win this one. Go on, who are you going for?
OK, Rishi Sunak and all of the cabinet members who never voted for Brexit, never supported it, and have done everything they can to sabotage it.
So on the graphic there it says Tory wets. Now, I can't bear Tory wets, but can you just explain to folk who might not know exactly what that means, who they are?
OK, and in simple terms, a Tory wet is someone who is not a Tory. They're so far to the left that they don't even belong in the party, and they're taking it over.
Yep.
Jeremy Hunt included.
Indeed, he's one of the biggest wets. Calvin Robinson, your nominee?
Jordan Walker, this is the Pfizer director who was caught on camera by James O'Keefe of Project Veritas, saying that Pfizer are manipulating COVID to make it more potent, to make more money. Kel Sapri. And the UK press has not covered this story yet, so we are breaking it.
No, this was a fascinating investigation, actually. I've been looking into it. What do you think about the methods that Project Veritas use, Calvin? Because, of course, this was an undercover recording. This bloke from Pfizer didn't know. I think he was on some form of date, right? And he was filmed.
I think it's fantastic. I think Ben Leo would be great at this kind of stuff. And it's getting the news out there. The funny thing is that Jordan Walker was like, I'll never trust anyone ever again. Well, what about all of us? Or what about the people who took the jabs thinking they were good news and they had people's best interests at heart? It's outrageous that he's the one who's the victim in all of this.
No, and they've definitely been doing some very good work, Project Veritas. And Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
I'm everyone's favourite Matt Hancock for the 3% of his fee. I think his agent probably took more than the charities did. And I don't think that he's cured dyslexia with that appearance, which I'm pretty sure he was going to do.
Well, of course, he claims he doesn't have a showbiz agent, Matt Hancock.
I didn't know that, but it feels unlikely.
In a good list of nominees, I have to be honest with you, I've got to go with Matt Hancock because that interview, earliest days, so well done, Rebecca Reid, that interview absolutely made me cringe. The fact that this guy told us all he was going on I'm a Celebrity because he wanted to donate the money to charity, and he donated 3%. What a snake. What an absolute snake. Thank you so much. Well done, Rebecca Reid. Well done, Calvin Robinson. Well done, Amanda Patel. Oh, we've gone woke because you're all winners tonight. I don't believe in that, by the way. I'm back again tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Next up, it's Headliners, though. Happy Independence Day.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back.
Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes. Already depressed.
Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell.